tried to do is, so I guess we're just kind of waiting for the conversation to naturally segue into something Ranma related.
Yes,
Like right now, everyone, and
yes.
welcome to Don't Know What to Do, your favorite Ranma One Half podcast. I'm Elena slash Hedgie, your host, and joining me today we have another guest. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Swarley. That's actually what my close friends call me too. What do you want? A character introduction? You want a little bit about my life? Well, how do you want this introduction to be?
You know what? You can start by letting us know what is your familiarity and experiences with Ranma. This is a Ranma podcast, and whenever people aren't talking about Ranma, they're asking, "Hey, where's Ranma?"
That does sound correct. I guess I could say my exposure of Rama is I was a poor high school student. Not poor, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
kid with strapped for cash because he's a kid, not because he's actually poor. So I was also that's the anime trope, the go home club. If anyone's familiar with that.
Ah, yes.
Yes, yes. The everyone joins the go home club. Anyway, I couldn't exactly go home that quickly. Usually, can't remember why. I don't think I had the keys to the house yet, but or something. Anyway, I would just stop by the local library and read all the manga they had there. Uh, I guess I could say I like anime and manga since I was a little kid. I started with, as any little kid should, Doraemon, Hamtaro, all the classics, all the kitty shows. What else? My big thing since as a kid until my adult life, my young adult life, has been in Cars. So initially was introduced very early on. That series that is my most I guess in terms of media, most consistent thing besides Cars itself. As a little kid, I played with cars and whatnot. But let's get back to Rama. Anyway, burned through kind of entire catalog of what I could find, and lo and behold, Rama and Half was there. Would draw me into it, maybe because it has some martial arts, and I have a passing interest in martial arts and fighting and whatnot. There's the typical anime hijinks, which I started getting way more into in high school. Uh, the other part is I'm a horny teenager. Hey, guess what? Everyone was, and there's more than just Cleveland shown in the manga. So, and the rest was, hey, I had 3 hours to kill, so I just kind of went through the catalog. I read through more or less the whole manga, minus like 10 to 20%. There was like a couple missing volumes, but being it is episodic, I didn't feel like I missed much. And being it was there was story arcs, but it kind of reset itself every time with like
Yeah.
minor ongoing, like, what do you say, plot development. I can't really say too much other than, oh,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Mr. The male and female protagonists start to actually not just tolerate each other, but maybe have a passing interest to, maybe they can even consider, how you say, express their feelings other than violence.
Yeah, the term I've been using is reset to the status quo. Just
Recess to the
here's
test,
what
yeah.
every story starts with. We're not allowed to progress past a certain point. That's how episodic content works.
And that's kind of it. I read, how do I say it? Rama has been just something to, I guess, pick up, but throughout, like, I guess consuming media, I noticed that I won't say it's like, every trope that Rama has is like the genesis of that trope, but it was, I guess, done very well. If not, actually not well, but it was well defined. How about that?
Yeah, it,
Is
it
that
helped
possible?
define
Yeah.
a lot of these roles and the way we
Right.
see them in
Yeah.
modern day. It was definitely one of the big examples. It's especially since it was like one of the first series to get like a big push outside of Japan. One of the like a lot of people got into Ranma and like manga in general in this manner early on. And it's just like flip a coin as to what got them interested. Was it the martial arts? Did they like that, or did they like the titties? Sometimes both.
Sometimes both.
But something convince you to pick it up.
Right.
And I definitely think that like once you pick it up, it's just a very accessible series. Most libraries had them. It was really easy, especially during a time when a lot of this stuff wasn't available outside Japan in most places. Although you are the first person I know of to mention Doraemon and Hamtaro as parts of their childhood. I I don't think those were as common outside Japan. I know
Yeah.
I definitely didn't hear of
Yeah.
Doraemon until I was an adult.
Right. Can I put a little what's the word? Not expletive, but a little what else? You know how books like they you know how like translate manga has like the Japanese
The
phrase and they put a
asterisk.
little asterisk. That's the word. Yeah, the asterisk. Put asterisk. I was actually born out of overseas,
Ah, that
and
makes
a
a
lot
lot
of the
more sense.
media, Hong Kong specifically, a lot of the media was kind of translated over from Japan. Yes, so I had more of a, I guess, the foundation of like, like, oh, what is that? Is that what are you watching? That's not like cartoons for kids kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's more, it's more of the Eastern like standard of like, young children's
yeah.
media and yeah, media in general, I guess.
I'm glad I clocked that because as soon as you mentioned those, I'm like, this does not sound like an American background despite the accent. So I'm like, oh boy, I bet there's some history there because that sounds great.
Yeah,
Well, during my
yeah.
research, I
Uh,
remember one of the things I found about Ranma was it had an Animax dub, uh,
oh
which
boy.
for those listening, Animax is great. It is an Asian channel state based in Hong Kong, but also in other countries.
Shout out
It's
Hong Kong. Shout out Hong Kong.
yeah, it's basically like English content because there's a lot of English speakers in various Asian countries. It makes sense. That's, a lot of these countries speak multiple languages. It makes sense to have like a sort of universal language channel. And it's just really funny because whenever they do their own dubs, because sometimes that's just cheaper than licensing an American or Canadian dub, like what Ramna got. Sometimes it's easier to just hire local actors. And unfortunately, Hong Kong has a much smaller population than the
Can
entirety of
I
like North
can
America.
I
So
can I get
options.
some background a little bit? Can I give a little bit of background
Yeah,
before? Yeah, before I know I know this. Well, I mean, you're probably gonna cut the intro when you started, doing your intro, but this was supposed to be out Genma, but I'm gonna have to interject a little bit.
yeah,
So if
absolutely,
you ever
of course.
watched, I guess it's Asian dub media, like like anything, Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
Shokino, Genzo Soma, anything new or old, you're gonna run into the same voice actors within like five characters.
uh
So
huh.
it's really weird to hear, hey, that was Takumi Fujiwara, and now he's the sidekick to Hamtaro. Or even like, oh, I'm watching Winnie the Pooh, but I hear the voice in like Gohan or something. So
I
yeah,
love
it's
stuff
the
like
same.
that.
Like yeah, there's this same shrilly like young. I'm just a kid. I'm a five. I'm supposed to be five. I'm supposed to be five, and you hear it, and then you hear like his voice kind of like throughout other shows. So you're like, as a kid, I never really like it's cartoons. It's like I like this one because there's hamsters. I like this one because I have a general interest in automotive or whatever. I like this one because there's robots. And then you hear the same voice actor play the same roles, and it's like, am I watching the same show half the time? I'm four. What do you want me to do? I don't have media literacy. I can barely learn how to write my name.
Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah.
if like people have had discussions about like why is this? Because that definitely happens a lot more with voice acting than with most mediums.
Uh, I okay. This is not from me, but I heard from a voice actor who was Australian or Canadian. I can't remember, but was an English voice actor in overseas, and he said, yeah, they were just trying to pump the media because like they had a better chance to get exposed to the media of the location if they just spoke in their native language. So in order to kind of get that ball rolling, they just had many roles of the same people just to streamline it, as per se. It was not like, oh, you need Johnny Young Bosch to play Nero, uh, and to continue to play that role until like either like the character retires or the voice actor dies. It's whatever is available. I think get it done. And I can't say this as a industry expert. I'm just a passing viewer. So take it as that what you will.
Well, I'm a non-viewer because I never got to see any of this, which is a shame because like Ranma isn't my first exposure to like English media in in like Asian countries, but like man, it is so fascinating. Like I'm a huge sucker for as you may guess by like how deep I went into this series. You see my giant chart.
I see the giant
Um,
chart. Yes.
I'm just a huge sucker for like commercial bumpers,
Oh yeah, same
things
here.
like
High
that
school
that like
Adult Swim,
that are just
Cartoon Network bumpers. Like that's my jam.
absolutely things
Bring
like
it back,
that,
please.
but just in general, like I've seen like look up stuff that is mostly lost media, except for like here is this one clip of like a commercial bumper for like the Animax dub of The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and it has the same vibe as like a Disney Channel commercial, and I'm like, this is so weird. But like I love seeing stuff like that. These like cultures that I didn't grow up with, and like it's one thing when it's like a language I can't speak, so I have to guess. But when it's in English, I'm like I can feel the exact vibe they're going for. I would have loved this as a kid.
I guess like since I watched it as a kid, I can only experience it, or I can only remember what I experienced, and I can't. I think there is kind of like a lost in translation, just because the nature of how the dubs get pushed out. By dubs, I mean the native language. So in my language, it's Cantonese. So the way it gets pushed out uh, seems a little more like, hey, just say the lines. Say it with maybe 50% of what the original story is going for. So, okay, I hate to kind of like turn this around, but in Initial D, there's specifically third stage. So, for any viewers who know, this is the movie. There's a scene where it's the flashback to Takumi blowing up his engine, his beloved 88.6, and it was just kind of like a voice line of like, "Oh man, like my car," and then it was said pretty like straight, as in, "Oh no, my car broke. I feel so sad."
Dude, my car.
Yeah, dude, my car. Yeah, it's kind of like that, or okay, that's gonna. I don't really want to bring that up, but it's like like a heavy scene kind of gets like stated as like I'm just read. You can tell like, oh, the actors are just reading their lines. So to bring it back to Rama, I can't, like, if I did watch this in a dub another country, I can only interpret so much of the original story, or at least the intent of whatever show that they're going for. And I would even say that, like, even the original dub of Rama, or like any of these like 90s anime, if it's not kind of like a high theatrical release, if it's kind of like more episodic, yeah, the vibe's kind of usually light. Like it's not really too heavy, so
Yeah.
you can't really say like, yeah, like not people are not going to go back and say like, oh, this was like a masterclass in voice acting, or this was like like, oh, this was like clocked in as um like a good example of like how you do a scene of like, no, it's more like they tell a joke, they have an expression, they say the lines, and they go home, and they have to do this for another 500 to 800 episodes, or until the studio cancels the show or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I could also relate to like Latin American anime scenes. I didn't grow up in a Latin American country, but like I have family there. I remember like my first exposure to Dragon Ball was when I visited family overseas,
Right.
and just and so like I also love that, and I remember being really upset when like the best quality footage I could find of the Latin American dubs were from like DVD rips of the North American DVDs. So it was clearly using the English version, but someone just switched to the Spanish language option.
Right.
Cause I'm just like, no, I want the other stuff. I want the culture behind it. Um, cause it's so interesting, especially just like even without the like different culture stuff, just going back to something that old and what was being dubbed at the time. The history of Rama dubbing is just so fascinating because like at the time you still had to release episodes in like VHS tapes that you could only fit 2 episodes in or
Yeah,
something.
the old anime fans, the ones who look down on us for our oh, you can just go to Crunchyroll and download the whole season. Yes.
Yeah, so it took them like a decade to completely dub the entirety of Rama One Half into English. And it's really funny because the first thing they translated were the OVAs because they were just,
It
standalone.
was contained.
Yes, self-contained standalone stories on VHS tape. Like even in Japan, these were just like a bonus thing after the anime had ended. And it's just really funny how like if you watch the whole series in chronological order, you'll watch like the final episode of the anime where some of these actors have had like 10 years experience doing these characters. And then the next thing is like the first thing they did with these characters, and it's like, oh boy, they sound way younger, and some of
Right.
them are very clearly less experienced, and they eventually grow into it, but it's still really fun to be like, oh, Moose's voice actor will someday be the voice of Light Yagami from Death Note, but for now he's very clearly an early 20-year-old guy doing his very first role, and it's just fun seeing the progression unfold before you. I love that kind of stuff.
You almost they force you to watch it out of chronological order, not because they're trying to do a Haru Suzumiya, more because that's how they dub the episodes.
Yeah, it's just it's so fun because
Yeah.
like the culture around the show is a big part of the experience to me, and you miss all of that if all you do is just binge a series on Crunchyroll. Like I just find it so much more fun to deep dive into that sort of thing. That's why I'm making this podcast because I was enjoying the whole process of finding like old commercials, or like I said, like I looked up the Latin American dub just to compare. I was so excited when I discovered the cheesy French opening, and like even without taking dubs into consideration, even just finding commercials in the original Japanese is just so much fun, and that's part of the experience that I want to have whenever I look into something.
Right. And I guess like I won't say each culture is going to give you a totally new perspective on the same media because at the end of the day they're trying to dub over the same show, but it does give you, I guess, like if if not a brief introspective of how each country is handling its own dub
Yeah.
and how important that media is to said country. So, like, real quick, just the reason Dragon Ball got so big in Latin America and also Mexico was because I believe that was like one of the biggest reruns
Yeah, definitely.
that they had in one of their channels. Yeah, so it was just accessibility, and through accessibility, it's just like, well, I need to, do the laundry, I need to cook dinner, I need to do adult things, and I have a kid who can't do adult things, so I'm gonna sit in on this TV, and he's gonna watch whatever thing that interests him, and usually that's the bright, colorful, shouty show, which is Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a
Yeah,
thing that was always popular, but other times you'll get stuff like Elfin Lied or whatever that was absolutely not popular, but just by random chance It just happened to be very accessible to English speaking audiences at the right time to have way more success than I imagine anyone would have expected from it at the time. And you never know.
I almost yeah, I almost want to say that's because it's a perfect storm of because Elfen Lied was like what early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So that's exact like I don't know I get interested and I try to think and like rethink about certain media, and one of them is like at that time you're getting, at least in America, you're getting like stuff like Devil May Cry, you're getting stuff like Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, you're getting stuff like the first genesis of like the modern superhero movies, right?
Yeah.
So and we're on the tail end of the 90s of like the super hyper violent, the WWE Raw, like the Marvel back in the 90s. You're getting, like a lot of these like hyper violent, hyper sexualized things. And then moving on to the 2000s, we're kind of getting the tail end of it. So I think it's still popular. So if you can make the jump that Elfin Light came out in a pretty good time where people still like to consume that type of edgy media,
Yeah.
and it also helps that anime kind of not blew up per se, but it got really popular in niche groups. They're starting to get like more bigger cons or bigger recognition, and it's like you're still gonna get made fun of for liking this stuff, but in certain groups you're probably really popular around the certain people.
Yeah, and definitely because that was like the tail end of
Yeah,
like well, like today anime is so ubiquitous. Everyone
right.
knows what anime is, but throughout the 90s and a little bit into the 2000s, you still had that
Yes,
sense of like this isn't your ordinary cartoon. This is for adults. And
you're still getting, yeah.
just check out this ninja scroll thing. That's what the OAVs were. Just, like there was so much more nudity in that very first OAV of Ranma. And like I think it's the only piece of Ranma media to have like a female character other than Ranma be presented like fully nude.
That was yeah. I don't. It's not gonna be it, but it's not something concubine. Oh me concubine. Oh my concubine.
Ni Hao My Concubine.
Need how my concubine. That's not it, right? That's like the second, third one.
Yeah, no, it's the second film,
No, the second
which
film.
I
That's
mean
right.
that is
Oh, it's
not an
OEV. Oh
inaccurate
yeah, yeah.
description of the second film either.
Yes. I watched like 30 minutes of it, and I go like, wow, I should save that for like 1 o'clock at night. This is not something I should watch right
Yeah,
now.
definitely not something you want your parents to know you're watching.
No, like the first 5 minutes got already pretty first, yeah, topless.
The first 5 minutes, like they absolutely knew what they were doing.
Right.
I've seen so many YouTube thumbnails using a screenshot of that one shot where like girl Ranma is kneeling in the water with the cleavage exposed and just splashing Ryoga, and it almost looks seductive even like that's what stuck with people. But the first OAV, you maybe have not seen it, but it's the one they translated to "Desperately Seeking Shampoo."
Ooh, yeah, that's a little.
They love their stupid puns in all languages. But yeah, this was the story with the weird like reverse brooch with that like inverts your emotions. So Shampoo ends up hating Ranma, and then it just becomes reverse psychology. Because now Ranma's like, oh, Shampoo doesn't love me anymore. Well, I'll show her. What if I seduce her? But like I said, usually when there's naked characters in Ranma, it's
Oh, there's
it's
titties in
usually
this.
not like
Hey, I was paying for it. I'm pretty
nudity in
raptured.
Ranma
Yes.
is the same as like nudity on The Simpsons. It's just like naked people are funny and
Right.
there's not much excitement in it beyond just the mere existence of a naked girl who is also a boy. Like you don't usually see Akane or Shampoo or any other of the girls get sexualized in the same way. But in this OAV, we get like a full bath scene with Shampoo, and you see her like I've seen it pointed out that like you can tell who's working on a piece of Ranma media based on like how the nipples look. Because there's parts of the manga where naked Ranma just has like dots for nipples. It's
Right, they're
just like
little
a
dots, just like
complete
yeah, no
cartoon
shirt. Yeah,
character, no definition. And then you get to the OAV where like Shampoo's nipples are perfectly outlined and defined exactly. They know who the audience for this is.
there there was there was texture, there was color, and there was like a little blush, and then I went like, oh, this is like way too much, like for for a light viewing.
And you could tell that this was the first one because, you know, this didn't air on TV. This is a VHS special. You have to go into a store to buy it. So it doesn't matter what we put in it. That's why so many early OAVs were like hyper violent and just so much nudity. That's where you get stuff like Devilman. A lot of those like really popular early ones were exactly catering to that market. In fact, that's why a lot of them were brought over into English specifically for that appeal, because this is so different from what you would see on TV. Um, in fact, like going back to what I'd said about like the Latin American dub that I could only find footage on like the English DVDs, it was always funny how like you can tell that certain parts got censored because it would suddenly switch to the English voices.
Huh, interesting.
Cause the English version didn't air on TV, so they didn't have to censor
Oh yeah,
anything
it was
out.
straight to
But because
video.
the Latin American
Right.
version was on television, they couldn't, you know, show everything. So I've seen this before where like sometimes if something got censored in one version, the DVD will just swap to a different language to keep them synchronized. I've seen it before. I remember watching like Card Captor Sakura in English, and anytime they start to acknowledge like Xiaoran potentially having gay feelings for someone, it would suddenly switch to Japanese, and you could just immediately tell, oh, that didn't air on
Did
American or English TV,
did
you
not.
know,
Yeah.
just for this one or two lines, it did not exist.
That's now I think about it. That's also why like I hate to keep bringing it back because I feel like I'm taking away from this
No, don't
podcast. But
worry.
Initial D, there's the I forgot there's like four OVAs, and this is the one with the two girls. The who's I don't know if you ever watched Initial D, but there's these two female. Actually, just one. One drives, the other co-pilots, right? And they were pretty much the only female interest outside of the main female love interests that are on the show because this is more of a shonen.
Yeah.
And in the OVA, it was just pretty much like a side story about like, hey, this racing team was like, hey, we're getting our ass beat by these guys with Lancer Evos, and we could really use your help. And then she was like, okay, fine, we'll do it. Not because you asked me to, but you know, blah 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 what. And then it cuts to a shower scene.
Yeah.
And if you just like watch the show, you're like, I remember I watched this at like way too young. I watched this like when I was like 4 probably. I was like, why are they in the shower? Why is it going super slow? I thought we're racing cars. Like, why is there like different environments other than like a dark lit mountain? Or like a gas station or someone's garage or the gas station because there's a lot of scenes
Yeah,
at the gas station.
every one of these productions will have people on it of like they will take any excuse to change things up a
Yeah,
bit if they've been working on the series long enough.
yes, and this was, I believe, not even a manga release. This was like strictly like animated, like like a
Okay.
pure OVA that meant for a different audience for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, do you want to keep going? This was supposed to be on Genma,
Oh,
wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, don't worry. Like But we could talk about whatever, but like, yeah, even when we decided on Genma, it was just a very non-committal, like, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
That's the first name that popped to mind. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I guess I could ask that. Why did you say Genma? Because it didn't sound like you had much in mind. That's just sort of the first thing.
I feel like it's kind of interesting. Relationship between Rama and Genma, the father son dynamic, and how much of a fuck up Genma is, if for lack of a better term,
Yes.
who keeps putting. Yeah, I mean, like you can't say that Rama isn't arrogant, putting himself in these wacky situations when there is a clear, obvious, other solution. However, I believe that half the show, if not all the show, wouldn't be where it's at without Genma making like life changing bets, for lack of a better term. Hey, let's go train here at these mystical hot springs, even though like that you get changed to various human or non-human animal forms if you
Yeah, yeah,
bump
and
into them.
he did not know that because he can't read the language that the
It,
brochure was in.
he just did it.
He
Yeah.
just took him there anyways.
He also made the whole agreement of with his who's the Akane's father?
Sown.
Son. Yeah. Hey, I have a son. You have three daughters. Let's just get them together, and then my son can inherit the dojo.
Yeah, that one absolutely like feels like the cuz that one definitely feels like a disagreement that they both made before either of their children was born. They're
Mm-hmm.
both really gung ho about becoming family and joining their families together. You definitely get the impression that like they were just the purest childhood friends who trained together, brothers for life. Of course, our children will get married. How else are we going to do this? You know, that's maybe like the most innocent of the major life-changing decisions Genma has forced on his son.
I I almost want to give a pass because it seems like more Genma was doing this behind everyone's back. Not telling like, oh, this Rama fell into the hot spring of what was it? A drowning girl
Yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah,
the
what
spring of
was it?
drowned girl.
Because every like yeah, spring of drowned girl, and then he fell in the spring of drowned panda or whatever. Um, without coming over, there was all these like side stories of like, oh, that thing that's happening now is because I did this one thing, I made this one bet, I signed off this one contract
Definitely.
18 years ago, and now it's coming back to bite me. But not really, because my my son is having to deal with it, or like my friend is having to deal with it, or like someone else is having to deal with my bullshit.
Yeah, and that's why I said the engagement with Akane feels like the most innocent of these examples because most of the time these situations are 100% Genma's fault.
Right,
But at least in this instance, both he and Son were
right.
friends. Like the joining of their families is seen as a good thing that benefits everybody. So it's also just really obvious that Rama and Akane do like each other. So they tend to come across more as just like really pushy parents trying to hook up their kids. Compared to like everything else, it's so much more innocent to look back on this, very simple arrangement, especially as we learn more about Genma and all the situations of him like selling his own son for like a bowl of rice. It's the more we learn about that, the more we start to get a picture that puts these things in comparison.
Not not at the best interest of your son. Yes,
Genma is such a terrible father,
terrible.
and you
Absolutely.
can
Yeah.
definitely see how like most, if not all, of Ranma's worst traits are also most likely, if not 100%, his fault as well, with the way he raised him. You can definitely feel how Ranma got the way he is whenever he's acting insensitive or rude towards Akane or does something stupid.
Right. it's almost like he's been as an adolescent to be the person he is. But I find that I guess I want to start off with that because kind of like it feels like if you want to just focus on the relationship between Genma and Rama, or just the implications of Rama's upbringing, that this is mostly because Rama is also trying to figure it out, but how to deal with, I guess, the situations involved in the manga, but also breaking out of his father's legacy per se, or at least his bad habits, and trying to be his own person and continuing forward how to deal with, being engaged to this girl halfway across the new country, instead of just this is a silly hijink thing that I put myself into, rather than this is kind of like what my father did before.
Yeah, and it is interesting because that's something that rarely gets explored. But like, Ranma is everything that Genma set him out to be. Like,
Right.
Ranma genuinely wants to be the exact kind of person that Genma also wants him to be. But Ranma is more dedicated to martial arts than Genma or his mentor Happosai ever were. Like, Happosai is dedicated to martial arts in the sense that he's old and he just happens to be experienced in all these various tricks that benefit him. But with Ranma, it's like he genuinely
Right.
wants to be the best. He likes to fight. He likes being number one. And also he just gets so insecure whenever that's challenged. Like, you almost get the impression that well, I mean, it was the early 90s, so maybe not so much, but like almost he probably would have had a better time adjusting to this transformation stuff if not for that upbringing. Like, Ranma almost seems more upset about how the transformating into a girl is going to affect his life as a martial artist more than his life as a man, because to him they're one and the same.
Right.
So that is 100% Genma's influence, and Ranma never seems to notice. And even if he did, it's unclear how he would react if someone just pointed out to him, like, "Hey, Ranma, what do you want to do?" Like, everything that you want for yourself seems to also be exactly what your father set out for you. But is that actually what you want? Or do you only want it because it's what you've been told you need to do ever since you were like 5 or something?
And I guess throughout the series, a lot of it is kind of side stories, or just like weird, wacky, like venture of the day or villain of the week type scenarios. But yeah, you do see Rama slowly stop being like, how can I be the strong? Maybe I don't want what I think I want. Maybe I want something else, but I don't really have a clear idea. But I'm gonna invest time to figure it out.
Yeah, it's Akane is definitely the best thing that ever happened to Ranma's life because she's clearly what gets him to open up. And
Right.
it's clear that whenever he behaves insensitively or rude to her, it's him reverting to who he was back when he was just traveling the world with his father as these wandering homeless martial artists. It gets a little weird once you realize that apparently Ranma stayed in one place long enough to go to school sometimes, but not always. The exact timeline is a bit wonky, but for the most part, you could definitely see that influence of, Ranma growing up with just his father,
Right.
no home, barely any time to make friends, and if he does, he loses them immediately by having to go somewhere else to train. And, every day he has to fight his dad for like the last bit of cup noodle. And you could definitely, see how that like upbringing makes it difficult for him to just allow himself to be vulnerable and have a normal functioning relationship with someone.
It's kind of funny. It's like, what if Ryu was a dad, but Ryu was a dad when Street Fighter 2 was still active, and his son has to just keep wandering the city and fighting random people.
Son, you need to be prepared for anything. Some of the people you're gonna fight will literally be able to shoot lightning. So hold these two electrical wires to trade. You have to be ready.
Yeah, yeah, and also you have a love interest and whatnot. But yeah, this is how would this Rama seems like there wouldn't be that much conflict if this happens a little more naturally, or you take out the not even the gender bending aspect. It's more of if Rama was just in Japan in the first place, or Seoul was in China, that they didn't have to travel that far.
I'm pretty sure,
If they didn't, yeah,
I've seen this come up a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure Ranma was only in China for a couple of months.
yeah, because I remember referring to the chart. Yeah,
It's unclear, but like we know that Rama at least went to high school in Japan long enough to like meet Ryoga and become rivals. And then of course there's Ukyo, his childhood friend, which is yet another example of Genma promising his son to somebody, even though by that point he had already promised an arranged marriage to Son.
right.
Um, but yeah, they literally swam to China, so who knows where Genma took Ranma and for how long they stayed at which point.
Yeah, it's hard to tell when the manga says we should take this seriously because there's a lot of suspension for comedic relief.
Yeah,
As in, yeah, just like oh, they were running away for like let's say 3 days because they got chased by a giant cat, but that was kind of a side joke that wasn't meant to be taken seriously.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff we're just not meant to think about.
Yeah, but if we do start to think about it, you know, like wow, Genba really put Rama through more trouble than he ever needed.
Yeah,
uh, yeah, and I don't think half. I think we can like cut out half the, or at least like fast forward the progression of the manga a lot faster instead of just having like multiple. Hey, we learned this lesson before, but Rama's such a bonehead, and he will not like figure this out unless you put him in the same situation again and over again, and actually have threaten some to lose something from it, which is probably Kane's relationship at this point.
yeah, definitely.
Which I think is kind of like the big crux of like, oh, you can't do this because she'll get mad, but like not just she'll get mad at you and then get over it. Is no, you and dump you like for real
Yeah, and then he'll insist that they're not dating because she's ugly or something.
or
And
something,
then of course she'll overhear and then hit him again.
and then repeat.
And then the
Yeah,
situation just keeps getting worse because he keeps putting his foot in the mouth. And
right.
again, you could see Genma's influence in that type of behavior whenever Ranma acts out.
And you could also count that as Rama never. I guess you can also say Rama never had enough time to feel the consequence of it keeps moving around. So he'll just do stuff, leave, and then maybe come back, but not really. Or he'll come back and then go like, "What? I'm supposed to take this accountability, or I'm supposed to take accountability for whatever he did," and then he'll leave again. And this is, I would say, the most consistent, I guess, what is it, consistent situation he's ever been in. Of he's stuck in Japan, and now he's supposed to get married to Kane, and they have to go to high school and deal with growing up in a stable environment.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
again, we know that Ranma went to school in Japan relatively recently because that's how he met Ryoga, and they formed a strong enough rivalry that Ryoga followed him to China. Um, but like even in that time period, we don't know what his living situation was. Like, did he go to school and then come home to like a tent in the park? Because that's pretty much all we ever see whenever we get flashbacks to Ranma's life before moving into the Tendo household. We either don't see his living situation at all, or it's just him and Genma being homeless. They're literally living in tents. They don't even have clothes. They're pretty much always wearing their training gis.
right. And again, I don't know if the author wants us to like, hey, the one off, like, oh, Ryuga has to challenge Rama because he beat him one time as a joke thing, or like it was that serious and was that life changing that Ryuga has to follow Rama to the depths of hell just to get a rematch. Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely feel Ryoga is most of the time just a punchline. We're
yeah,
not really meant to take him seriously, and he takes
yeah,
things way too seriously. But there's still all these like important life-changing decisions being done without Ranma's awareness or consent in any form. Like again, Ukyo is a perfect example because, you know, from Rama's perspective, he, befriended this person, and then eventually it was time for him and his dad to leave. They were just moving. We see
right,
his flashback where he's just waving goodbye, like, bye, friend. But then when we get Ukyo's side of the story, it's like she genuinely liked this guy and was promised an opportunity to marry him. Like, this was a really important thing to her. And then she experienced the most ultimate betrayal
right.
where she was abandoned and they robbed her family. It's such a traumatic event, and Ranma is completely oblivious. Like, who knows how long he was even in that town or how important it was? He could have been there for like a couple
Right.
months, maybe at
It
most.
could have been 2 weeks. Who knows?
It could have literally just been 2 weeks. We don't know, but like clearly it didn't matter to Ranma at the time.
You could say like, well, they did this, and the only thing I can really like pinpoint is I just reread chapter 15, 16. So that was the this random dude, random gambling. He's drawn as the king, as in like the
Ah, yes, the
intent parts
gambling
of it.
king.
Yeah, the gambling king. Yes, and Rama and Yukio bet like the dojo or whatever in order to play it. What, like, was it Old Maid? I think that was the game.
Yeah, that one's also weird because prior to that storyline, it was easily assumed that Ranma didn't even know that he was engaged in any
Right,
way. But at
right,
that point, when he was still a child, he at the very least understood that his father made some kind of promise that would eventually result in him inheriting a dojo, which
right.
I could absolutely see Genma telling him that without giving any context. Just, hey, son, if you become a good martial artist someday, this dojo will be yours.
And it's going to be, I don't know, anything goes. And I think that might be another setup to say like anything go. Like, I'm going to keep you in the dark until my plans are concrete, but just keep training, son, and one day you'll be a strong martial artist like me.
Yeah, he was definitely not aware of the full
Yeah,
context in which he would inherit the dojo. And even if he was told, he was like 5 at the time.
yeah. You really can't fault him. You really can't fault him.
Yeah, but that he accidentally bets the entire dojo that he doesn't even know what it's for.
Right.
But yeah, it's just really funny trying to imagine, like, if these types of stories happened, like, what other kinds of weirdos did Ranma and Genma bump into over the, like, 10 years they spent wandering the world?
I would almost say it's more Genma. I feel like all these like misadventures is just because Rama seen Genma do this one time, and I was like, oh, that's what adults do. I guess that's what I can do because that's what my dad did. And if my dad did this, it must be okay.
Yeah, yeah, Genma absolutely would have made a similar deal with the Gambling King.
It's just Rama got to him first, and didn't Genma didn't know about it.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
is funny. Like Rama will constantly make things worse for himself, and at this point, he's a teenager. He's no longer 5. Like he has a bit more accountability for his own actions, but also looking at his upbringing and the environment he was raised in, there's only so much blame you can assign to him.
yeah, and that's kind of like the big reason, or one of the reasons I kind of want to bring up Genma is because I feel like there is a strong a strong kind of like how the story pushes forward, or like where Rama stands morally, I guess you can say, and like the reasoning behind his actions throughout like a lot of the manga is because he was preconditioned to the general hijinks of Genma and running around like fighting villains of the week and having to readjust. Oh, we're not like running away anymore. We're staying in more or less Japan now, and we're having to deal with. You can't just like piss off your neighbor and then like like flip his house around and then like go back and run like like go away. Like you're gonna come back the next day. He's gonna say, "Dude, what the hell, man? Like I lost my house because you gambled it away, or like you did like you're practicing your like super strong like seeker move, and now like I have nowhere to live. You're gonna have to do something about that, man."
Yeah, yeah, and, like, we almost never see it. There's so few flashbacks to Genma's youth, but if you wanna zoom out even further, you could also see Hopplesai's influence in Genma.
Yeah, it's just the precursors. Like, oh, it's the the saying like the father passes on a softer hit to the child or the parent. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you think Genma's bad? Look at Hopposai. Like that man's a criminal.
yeah,
Like a
exactly.
world like he is FBI's most wanted in like whatever he's getting mostly
He will literally commit crimes and then leave his 2 apprentices to deal with the police or
with
whoever
the
is chasing after him so he
right.
can pin the blame on
He
them.
fit yeah. They get shafted with the bill. Right, right.
Yeah, and, like,
Like Hoppos like there isn't 30 panels where I didn't see Hopposai with the little knitted bag of like just woman's underwear around.
yeah, exactly, and you
Yeah,
could definitely see that in the way that both Son and Genma are terrified of Hopplesai.
right.
Like, the way he's introduced, like, their explanation for why he's not present from the very beginning is because at some point in their youth, Son and Genma just decided enough is enough, and they just got him so drunk that they were able to, like, tie him to a boulder, kick him into a cave, and then seal up the cave where he just rested for, like, 20 years, like, and she just pops out like the journey to the west monkey coming out of the rock eventually. I guess he just slept for that long.
30 years. Yep, yep. He got so drunk he just fell asleep and got into a alcohol induced coma, and yep, that's why the world's at peace, and now he's awake and sober, and the world will tremble among his how will you say earthly desires.
Yeah, when he
Yeah,
wakes up, he literally acts like, "Oh, that was a great nap. Anyways, time to go check up on my apprentices." Like he's not even remotely concerned over the fact that they locked him in a cave for multiple
when you're
decades.
that
He just
yeah.
shows up again and it's business as usual and now they're both absolutely terrified.
Right. We have to deal with something. We have to deal with something. I don't know about him directly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what Genma grew up with. And like technically he's a better father figure than what he grew up with. There is some improvement.
He's still bad. He's still bad, but yes, better. Definitely.
He's still bad, but
Right.
you at least get a sense that he cares about his son. Like he genuinely wants what's best for him. So he's not going to do anything nearly as bad as what Hopplesai did to him. Like Ranma isn't scared of Genma, and that is absolutely an improvement. But yeah, I suppose on the note of Genma loving his son, that's something that some people might question, because do we ever actually see how much he cares for Ranma? You know, Genma doesn't have a lot of debt and few characters do. He mostly becomes a punchline towards the end. I definitely feel that if he wasn't Ranma's dad, Rumiko Takahashi would have just forgotten about him and just dropped him because he's not important. But he lives at the house, so he's got to stick around sometimes.
Right.
But there's not a lot going on with him. And I would like to bring up a single exception because there's not a lot of what I would call a Genma episode that's about him, you know?
No, usually he's like the catalyst of the action.
Yes. Yes, there aren't a lot. But there's at least one in the manga plus a couple filler episodes. There's one where he goes back in time to feudal Japan, and then it turns out to be a dream. That's a silly one-off. Um, but there is one particular story. Do you recall, or have you heard of the Cradle from Hell arc?
Uh, I feel like the name rings a bell, but please walk me through it.
Right. There is an arc which is basically Genma having a midlife crisis.
Okay.
So what happens is, I find this really interesting because I've always been under the impression that like Ranma is clearly stronger than Genma. Like Genma doesn't even come close to him in terms of strength.
Right. Strength, or the only way that Genma can win all the encounters is because he's just older and has more tricks up his sleeve,
Right,
and will
yes.
do the things that Rama won't, because Rama is a pure by the books martial arts fighter, and he wants to win by his skill as a martial arts fighter instead of Gamma's anything goes, as in literally anything goes.
Yeah, so this
Right.
storyline begins with Ranma apparently winning his morning sparring match against Genma for the first time,
Right.
which I remember finding a little weird, but as you point out, I guess the implication is that Genma always found some kind of unfair trick
Some
to
right.
get an undeserved victory against Ranma that he could never get past. And also, this is just their morning routine. They're just doing some basic punches and kicks
Right.
for like exercise. It's not something that was taken too seriously, and then they fight over the last piece of breakfast or something.
Right.
But apparently, this was the first time that Ranma just unequivocally won against Genma. Just like no Johns, and now Genma's having this moment of like, is my son better than me? Am I weak?
Am I washed? Am I washed? Chat. Chat.
Yeah.
Am
So he's just like, all right, son, I challenge you to an official duel. None of this like workout stuff, no holding back. We are both gonna spend 1 week training, and then we're gonna meet up and have a proper crew duel. I'm gonna give it my A game, so you be ready. And then he just moves out and sets up a tent in the park, and he's now just this smelly old guy in the park as he spends the next week training for this duel. And a lot of this arc is just the characters talking to either Ranma or Genma, being like, "This is stupid. Like, why don't you just talk it out? Just make up. Why do
right.
you have to fight?" But eventually, the two of them have their duel. Now,
Right.
the thing I really like about this arc is that the anime expanded upon this storyline in a way that I find very interesting.
Right.
So the anime added multiple flashback scenes showing Genma and Ranma's travels as he grew up. The episode opens with a scene of they're just in the snow in a tent, like it's freezing outside, and we just cut inside to like little baby Ranma being like, "Dad, I'm cold." And Genma's like, "Come here, son. Daddy will keep you warm." And he's just hugging and petting him. And
Oh,
it's
that's
just
cute.
this really cute, like wonderful scene that we rarely get to see moments like this. And so they included this probably because, just in case you've only seen clips of Genma being a terrible father, just so that you can know, no, he genuinely cares. He really loves his son. And like in this moment, they are homeless. Genma is homeless.
Right.
Again, you got to look at like how he grew up and how in this moment, like he needs to feed his son. He needs to keep him warm. They're in the freezing cold and they have nowhere to go. And just something to maybe perhaps put Genma's actions into perspective.
Right.
So that right there is already like such an interesting change, and I love when the anime adds those moments of things that were just like implied to be the case. Like
Right.
I don't think Rumiko Takahashi intended for us to assume that Genma doesn't love his son. Like, of course he loves his son. Why wouldn't he? He's not a monster. It's just that, we never really get to see it through his on-screen actions.
Right. I just want to, since you brought it up, I want to say I don't think it was ever, and it's me reading the manga. I don't think it was ever felt that Genma did anything out of spite
Yeah.
or anything out of harm. It was more of he's a silly. He's just so, how you say he's so careless. It's more just ignorance and lack of self control for I think for most of his actions of and just not thinking forward of like, oh, my actions have consequences other than I hate that I have a son that I have to drag
Yeah.
around, and the only way that I can think of keep Rama around is because I can use him as leverage to get my own dojo in the future.
Yeah. And like the example I gave way earlier of like Genma trading his son for a bowl of rice. Like that happened after Genma was wandering the desert for weeks. Like he's got a full beard and is dehydrated. And this guy's like, "Hey, I need a male heir for my company. Will you trade me your son?" And Genma's
Right.
like, "Sold." Then immediately afterwards, we see Genma with like a fishing rod trying to like steal baby Ranma back like a cartoon. Like, oh, man, what a sucker.
Like, what am I, an idiot?
Yeah, it's just like, how dumb
What am
does
I,
he
a
think I am?
monster?
Like, yeah,
I'm
I'll give him
hungry.
my
I'm not a
baby and then
monster.
I'll just steal my baby back. What's he gonna do? Come back in like 15 years
Yeah.
to challenge us to like martial arts noodle delivery to claim the heir he's owed? What's the worst that could happen? Although thinking on it, I think because this was a filler episode in the anime, I think this is technically an anachronism. Because although I don't recall the exact year that Ranma began his training, I think the manga eventually reveals that like Ranma was like maybe 4 or 5, whereas this shows him as a baby. Like chronologically, Ranma should still be with his mom at this point,
Yeah.
who like Ranma's mom is definitely like a subject matter for its own episode that we could break down. We haven't even mentioned her so far.
Well, I mean, considering we spent the last, I say, hour talking about Genma, yeah, I mean, both parents have equal huge effects of the show if you just extrapolate. Because both of them, I guess, besides the mom, because I know I can't remember what specific action Rama's mom was in. But I do remember there was a huge plot point of Rama being really interested to reconnect with his mother because he was not just present. Mostly, I would say, due to Gamma's fault.
Yeah,
It
that's
probably
how it feels. I like I said, this could fill an entire episode. I will
right,
absolutely cover Rama's mom in the future, so I'm not going to get in too much into this. But like the short version is that Genma wanted, like again the Ryu from Street Fighter lifestyle. Like I'm going to take my son. We're going to follow the path of the road warrior. We're gonna, join the streets and learn how to fight. He's going to become a martial artist.
right.
And Ranma's mom is like, "No, you're not taking my baby. What why would you do that?" And this is when Genma promises that if they come back and Ranma is not a true man among men, then he and Ranma will both commit ritual seppuku.
Oh,
They
that's
will
right.
literally
Yeah,
kill themselves if they do not fulfill
yeah.
this
I'm
promise.
starting to come back.
To
Yeah,
which Ranma's mom then agrees, which I find funny because to me that implies that she's technically not against this like warrior fighter's lifestyle. It's more that she just didn't trust Genma to actually fulfill on that promise. But as soon as like death is on the table, suddenly she's like, "Oh, he's actually taking this seriously. I guess I can approve now. Now that I know he's actually going to give Ranma this like fighter's training that he's promising."
I guess you can say that. Uh, I'm gonna be able to. Ryuko Takahashi. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Yeah, Rumiko
Or
Takahashi.
is it Rumiko? Rumiko Takahashi. Yeah, Rumiko. Um, you can say Rumiko Takahashi. Which I think she is trying to up the ante. This is kind of a another trope of anime where if one parent is X, it's either the opposite. Like if like the mom's like nice and loving, the dad's like a crazy like freak who's just like off the wall, or just something's like extreme about like the other side, right?
Yeah.
Or the other trope is if one guardian is like this, the other one is taken to the absolute extreme. So like if like Rama is scared of his dad, he is terrified of his mother for whatever reason. Just as an example.
Yeah, and so like
Yeah,
Genma is the obvious villain of this story. Like Ranma's mom didn't want to lose her son, and then he convinced her that this is what's best for him, so she reluctantly agrees. But also, she is really gung ho about this death pact they formed. Like, she's taking it way more seriously than anyone else. She is making it clear she will murder her husband and son if they do not fulfill this pinky promise they swore.
right.
And it's just so funny and absurd and ridiculous because like she could just not. Nobody's forcing her to adhere to this promise, and hell, she could have gone with them.
Yeah, just to keep track.
Yeah, because again, the implication is that she just didn't trust Genma. Like she was worried he wouldn't actually fulfill on his promise and make Ranma into a true warrior. And it's only once he put death on the table that she suddenly is on board with this plan.
But wasn't she just a regular person, all intents and purposes? She wasn't like super into martial arts or anything specific. She just,
We get zero information on that. Like, we don't even know how she and Genma met, let alone got married.
so I would say this is not even bad writing. This was just no writing at all. We don't know like why she was so committed, other than she's really committed, but she has no background in martial arts. She has no background in like dojo raising. She has no
Yeah,
background in anything that Rama or Gemma did. She's just uh, Rama's mother? Question mark?
yeah.
Yeah. So
And like
yeah,
a lot of the humor here is that she doesn't appear to care about Genma at all. She
right.
only wants to be reunited with her son and will literally ignore Genma and not even think about him. And it's like, well, it sucks for him, but also he's Genma, so who cares? But it also just like raises so many questions of like, why did she marry him in the first place? Like, why is she agreeing to this lifestyle for her son? Like, Ukyo, for example, didn't start out as a martial artist. That is not her primary thing. And we get multiple scenes of her going along with Genma and Ranma just to be like the housewife. She's in charge of the camp. She'll cook them dinner once they're done
Right.
training.
Right.
And
Right.
like Rama's mom could have done that, but like no, she'd rather just stay at home waiting over a decade.
Waiting for, yeah, of like, I hope my son's a manly warrior.
And until
Yeah.
they do, she's just gonna she's holding the sword, ready to use it, just in case they show up and the promise has not been fulfilled. She will kill them.
I then again we have to speculate. Is Rama's mom written in conception of the series as the joke, or was she?
Probably not.
Yeah, yeah. Rumiko probably. Yeah, Rumiko Takahashi probably written like ran out of things to write, or just like starting to lose steam. What can I do? Oh, I Genma, but I never wrote about Rama's mother. I could just bang bang boom, and then like spin the storyline.
Yeah, like she just didn't clarify
Yeah,
anything about either of the moms. We don't learn that Son's wife died until much later. We just got zero
right.
information. And I guess it wasn't until a while of like, well, why isn't Genma talking about his wife? Until she realized she could make a fun story out of it.
Yeah,
Just this really stupid explanation for why things are the way they are. So now just out of nowhere we have this explanation for how absurd both of Ranma's parents are. It's mostly Genma's fault,
it's mostly
to be
Genma's
fair,
fault.
but also Ranma's mom is still just like comically on board with everything because she has to be.
Yeah,
You have to work backwards. If she wasn't the type to agree to this and follow this logic, the plot wouldn't happen.
there is no plot if she. It doesn't justify the story thus far if she isn't this crazy. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
So we get this sense with the upbringing all the characters have. But going back to the Cradle of Hell arc, before we got on this tangent with the mom, like Genma does genuinely care for his son.
Yeah.
You could tell that he truly believes that this is what's best for him.
Right.
This is how he was raised, and he turned out just fine. So obviously he's gonna do the same for his son.
Right.
Literally willing to put his life on the line in a very absurd pact with his wife to make this happen. Genma is all in on this lifestyle. He genuinely cares about martial arts and he wants his son to share that passion. It's it's something I've talked before about how there's so many things in the series that we just kind of take for granted. Like we know that Rama and Akane love each other, but we don't actually get to see it very often. In the same way, like we know obviously Genma doesn't hate his son. He cares for him in his own way, but this arc is maybe perhaps like the only time we really get to see that.
It also did Rumiko Takahashi ever had a heavy involvement with the anime, or was it more of a passing? Like, yeah, you have the rights to my project,
As
and
far
just
as
kind
I'm
of let
aware, I don't think she was involved in the
right.
production of
So
any adaptation of her works.
so it's more so we can probably speculate that it was the individual writers who's just adding with permission, with I'm pretty sure with permission, adding little, tidbits of how they feel the story would have went or how they felt it should have went with each of the characters.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah,
these are flashback scenes. Like
right.
we are getting glimpses of stuff we know happened
Yeah,
previously. Like we were told about this wandering lifestyle. We just never really got a good look at it.
right. And it's more implied that with filling in the blank and uh just to I guess to keep make the characters a little more fleshed out. Will add a little bit more as the adaptation continues,
Yeah,
rather than translate it straight.
yeah, and you got to fill this screen time with something.
Yeah,
It's not like the manga where like this could just be a one-off
right,
chapter or a storyline that's 2 or 3 chapters. Like every episode has to be 22 minutes exactly.
right.
But I really do like when the adaptations add stuff like that. Because sure, we don't need to see all this. None of it is relevant to the plot or necessary, but it just feels good to like get little glimpses of what we could have imagined happening, but now it's actually happening right in front of us. We get to see like baby Ranma growing up with his dad. What's that like?
So would you say then it's mostly, if not 100%, the manga and the anime is 100% canonical to the series, or rather it's the adaptations and the original work as a whole is canonical to the series?
Um, I'm not sure because this is one of those things where like the anime began like less than halfway through the manga's run.
Right,
And once it caught up, it started doing its own thing, but then the manga started being more in line with what anime was doing, which then gave the anime producers their own direction to take that in. It's sort of a chicken and egg situation.
right,
I don't think Rumiko Takahashi's the type to really talk about the process, like how much of what was made with these characters in the anime influencing what direction she took them in. Like, did she ever look at stuff and go, "Hey, that works. Maybe I should do more of that."
right,
Who's to say? She's
right.
definitely the type to just write whatever pops into her head, whatever's funniest, without really putting too much thought into what worked previously or what people expect from her. She just sort of wings it, I guess.
Right.
But but yeah, this whole connection about like Ranma's relationship with Genma is it's n- it was expanded on in the anime version, but there's also a little bit there even in the original story.
Okay.
Because well, I guess I should talk about how it concludes. Because I said before, most of the arc is just everyone talking to Ranma and Genma because they're both being stubborn and constantly like picking fights with each other. Ranma's annoyed that his dad keeps like egging him on, being a jerk, and then everyone goes to Genma, just being a smelly hobo, telling him like, just come home, and he's like, no, I'm training. And then they come back later, and you just see him in his panda form playing with his panda toys.
He is a cute panda. If he's not causing chaos, he is pretty fucking cute. He's just a little panda, useless.
Yeah, his little panda tire that he likes to bring out whenever they do that very common joke where like everyone finds out about something stupid Genma did,
Oh
and they
no!
turn to look at him and he's suddenly in panda form playing with the little tire or like eating some bamboo, just like I'm just a panda.
Yeah,
Don't
playing
mind
with his
me.
little ball. I think he has a little ball. Is it? Am I
Yeah, a
remembering
ball, a
correctly?
tire, just
Yeah,
whatever you would expect to see a panda playing with
he's
at a
just
zoo.
yeah, and but yeah, it's and now I don't remember if we ever got a conclusion to Genma and Rama's relationship. It was more like they kind of patch things over because Rama not really Genma having to do too much other than maybe, hey, I kind of messed up. I'm sorry, and just acknowledging it. But it's more on Rama's part to say, hey, I realize, like like the last. Canonically, how long was from like the beginning of the manga to the end? How long did that occur? Was it like 1 or 2 years? Because I remember
Like in
in
universe?
universe, because like I just flipped through the last chapter and I was like, wait, they just went back to high school. So I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, like it's literal sitcom logic of like there's multiple Christmas specials. Sometimes they act as if it's been over a year, but Ranma and Akane have not aged. They're
right,
still both
right.
16 and in the exact same year of high school.
Yeah, so
So just don't think
canonically,
about it.
yeah, just don't think about it. So canonically, I can only say that like it's only throughout the story that what you see, but canonically, no time has passed. That Rama has matured and developed emotionally to be a better person, and in turn, having to force that onto Genma in a good way. Because hey, I'm not going to interact with you if you continue becoming like absent-minded and careless about or your actions. And we, not just me, but like everyone around you is tired of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rumiko Takahashi just doesn't have much interest in those types of developments.
Right.
Like I talked before, like even the ending of the entire series, like you could have stuck that ending after any chapter. It doesn't follow up on anything. It doesn't build on anything. It's just,
Right.
well, now that that story's over, now they hook up, and that's the end of the story. They just tie the knot.
Yeah. It's more implied than anything, and I guess that's kind of the nature of the genre as a whole, like the harem genre, right? Like
Yeah,
because ultimately Rama, if not anything, Rama is more or less a there is a clear like love interest, but
yeah,
and it's kind of like this is like a like the conception of like the before it even had the title of a show. There was love interest, but there's not
definitely.
really the main character is not really like strong about any person other than the main the main female protagonist.
Right. It's like the
Yeah,
the harem romance genre as we see it today, it just did not exist.
didn't exist.
Like there were
Right,
definitely precursors, but it was very different to what we're used to nowadays.
right. So we can't like so this kind of is in a weird spot where like yeah, they are always meant to be together because that's the closest relationship Rama ever had, not because he is you know interested in any other girl, or more or less, he's interested in girls in general.
Yeah, Rama doesn't seem to have any interest in anyone except
Girl,
Akane.
yeah,
And like you could sort of see
and yeah,
why. Like they are a good couple
right, yeah,
when they're not constantly arguing.
because they both are in. They're very interested and invested in martial arts. They're invested in becoming their own person. Because Akane's whole, like, part of her whole arc is she wants to be considered an equal in, like, her family. Correct? She wants
Yeah.
to own the dojo as much as the other her sisters wants to do her own thing, but she gets overshadowed, just taking a back seat because she's a girl, and then this title doesn't really belong to you because you are, you know, my daughter, not my son, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it is interesting how like Genma's style of parenting is taking his son on this journey to be a warrior. We're going to be traveling martial artists, training and seeing the world. And then meanwhile, you've got his friend Son here who sleeps in a big bed with his wife and has a big house and three kids, and he didn't do any of that. No wandering for him.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
you definitely don't get the impression that Ranma's planning to follow in his father's footsteps. Like he's gonna inherit the dojo. He gets this house now. He gets to live somewhere. If he were to marry Akane and have kids, I don't see why he would choose to follow the wanderer lifestyle again. Like, why would he choose to be homeless again? Why would he choose to replicate this life he had with this asshole father and constantly running away from problems? Like, I feel like Rama would be very satisfied to just settle down and own a dojo. That sounds nice. But yeah, that seems to be the style of these two fathers.
yeah. Uh, it almost seems like So owns the dojo as kind of a hobby or a passing interest, and like, he has other things going. It's kind of implied that he has other things going on, and he's just doing this because it's the love for the sport, rather than Genma's like, I'm doing this because I'm poor. I'm doing this because I have nowhere to go. I'm doing this because fighting is the only thing I ever invested that much time into, and I don't know what else to do to earn money and earn a living and get food and the basic necessities. So I have to fight.
How else is he going to be able to get a job? Like, as far as
Yeah.
we're aware, he has no skills
How
besides
else? Yeah.
fighting.
Right. How else am I going to earn money? How else am I going to support myself other than weird tricks, like like trickery, and like weird, like bets and like whatnot. And so it's more like, I just really like martial arts. I really enjoyed it. It's a interest I have, and I have this dojo that I own, but I don't really have any students, which is another weird thing. Like, he has no students. It's
None at all.
mostly just for Akane, just to yeah, it's mostly just for Akane use it as a personal gym, more or less.
And it's unclear if he would have had a different attitude if he had a son or literally anyone who used the dojo
Right.
as a dojo. Like, we'll get moments where like the neighborhoods association, wants to throw a party, so they rent out the dojo for that. But like if he had anyone other than Akane
Right.
to pass down his teachings to, like would he have done things differently or would he have been closer to Genma in terms of,
Yeah.
what martial artist style to pursue?
So it's kind of weird that even so, now you bring it up, it's kind of weird that So would agree to, like, hey, I would like your child to pass, be engaged with my daughter, and we would pass on the dojo. It doesn't really make sense if So just has a passing interest, which kind of is kind of seems like, yeah,
Sohn is clearly
right,
invested. It's
of
just,
course,
he's invested in the sense of like, I want the next generation to have these things. And he already has the house and the dojo. It's now just a matter of waiting for them to be old enough to actually inherit it. And until then, he's just kind of chilling and reading
yeah,
his newspaper.
yeah. He's reading his newspaper. He's enjoying just retirement, more or less, throughout the series. Like, I never. I don't think I ever had ran into a story arc where like So had to like work or like something's going. I have to like support my family again.
Yeah.
It's more like nope. I'm kind of all set. There's just enough money for comfortable living, maybe to send my kids to college, and that's about it. I have nothing else going on. Yeah,
We regularly get jokes about that at his expense because like he does still have like a house full of like 7 people to feed.
right,
And he's clearly got enough to live comfortably,
right.
but like in an emergency, like if something were to happen, if someone needed an operation or something, he'd be screwed. Like he clearly only has so much in his savings.
Yeah, and it's never implied that he's too physically unable or even mentally incapable to find work. He's perfectly capable, yeah, to work. But it's also implied that I mean, it's also like seemed like the story was written where like, eh, life is going good right now. I don't really need to do anything, and if I do, I'll figure it out. Which it's kind of weird that he even has the dojo in the first place. Like it feels like more like he made the dojo as kind of like cause to pursue his hobbies,
Yeah,
and then it just became like a toy. Now it's like you know the joke of like the old boomer with his Corvette.
yeah,
Yeah, like he has this like he has this sports car and he leaves it mostly sitting in his garage on a battery tender because
yeah,
he has a passing interest and if he has to sell it, he will, but he doesn't want to. He really doesn't want to, but like it's not gonna break. Like he's not gonna like lose that much sleep over it overall if he really needs that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Happosai is absolutely a Genma. Like
yeah,
he definitely followed that same wanderer's lifestyle. He doesn't seem particularly committed to a single home. And whenever they cut to the two fathers, when they were teenagers, they seem to also be following in those same footsteps. Like they were
right,
just homeless people training under their master.
right.
And it's unclear where Sohn even got this big house and dojo from. Like, did he come from a wealthy family and inherited it once he was older? Or maybe it was his wife's family, or maybe he had like a dream. Maybe he wanted to have a big house and dojo and saved up for it, and now he's satisfied that he had that. But either way, he very clearly didn't seem to have access to this big home and dojo until after he trained under Happosai.
Yeah, it does seem like now now you can maybe extrapolate that Sohn got tired of living that hobo, a road warrior lifestyle and just like, you know what? I'm just gonna settle down. While Genma was kind of like trapped in the mentality of the hobo wanting warrior and like continue his life living that way.
So literally,
Again, just
yeah.
yeah, it was never implied like either which way. It was just like one kind of uh did pretty well for himself, and the other continued what Hoppleside left off.
Yeah, Sohn literally has tears in his eyes when he gets the postcard from Genma. It really seems like they haven't contacted each other
Right.
since they finished training.
Yeah, they just
And
they
he's clearly overjoyed by all of this, like Sohn very obviously would have loved it if he and Genma could have both settled down together and
right.
had their children grow up together rather than like, okay, well, Sohn's ready to settle down, but Genma still wants to train, and he will just meet up in like 15 years or something, or longer. Kasumi's 19. How long has it even been since they made that promise? Who knows? But it definitely feels like Genma is providing the spirit of the fighter that Sohn doesn't have, where Sohn provides the financial aspect that they kind of still need. Those kids need a roof over their heads and to eat. And neither of these parents could have provided both of those things, so they just kind of split the task and we'll each cover half.
it's I guess we could. I mean, again, it's kind of weird that I this topic kind of led like start like led off with, oh, I just want to talk about, I think it's kind of funny like how Gimmet did this and like now the implication that like Rama took after his father and like how the story progressed into like, well, we are reaching out like out of bounds territory of the characters because we have no information and we have nothing to look back on of like, oh, this is the reasoning why, and like how these characters really operated or like their origin and how they grew up. It's just like, oh, it was what it was implied or it was written one time that like they were friends, they were pretty friendly with each other, and they decide to follow in the footsteps of their master. This is all like speculation, more or less.
Yeah,
The last,
we're
yeah,
kind of forced to
to do
speculate,
this right,
but also that's just kind of the entire cast. That's just sort of Rumiko Takahashi's style.
writing. Yeah.
She may not think very much about these details, but she certainly gives us plenty of little nuggets to piece it together, whether she realizes it or not. And who knows, maybe she does think of these same questions. Maybe she does, wonder like, hey, what did happen to Ranma's mom? Maybe I should write about that. And it's just, if she thinks of a funny enough answer, she'll explore it, but otherwise she'll just ignore it. So maybe if she ever did ask herself, what is Son's job? She just couldn't think of something funny enough to include in the manga itself.
So when you say this is no disrespect or hate to Rama, Rama one half, do you think that if you have a modern harem martial arts manga or anime, if you let it run the course as long as Rama did, we are gonna get the exact same product?
Definitely no, I don't think. Rama very much feels of its time.
Right,
The way it handles characters, and like I feel like something nowadays would do something more tropey and familiar. Like we get similar characters, but then here's an episode that explores this backstory, and it would take itself more seriously when
right,
exploring
right.
that.
So
With Ranma, it's like if you can't get anything funny out of it, it's just not going to be touched on at all. You can explore it if you want, write your own fan fiction, but like as far as what author's thinking, it's just not really going to come up unless it's for the bit, of course. You got to do the bit. But you don't really see that nowadays. And not even just with anime, but like comedy in general is so rare now. Like we're so used to just seeing comedic elements in other styles, but definitely not how it used to be handled. And Ranma is just too much of that specific era where it didn't invent, but it did present some of the biggest examples that helped codify this genre and style into what it is today.
so would you think that if you watch it again now, do you think it's still funny, or do you think it's just interesting enough to kind of keep going? Not to say that it's not, but is there any like laugh out moments where you can watch it again and get like a kick out of it? Like you will physically
Absolutely.
right.
I think Ranma is just so funny and in a way that not a lot of modern media is. It's
Okay.
just a very
Right.
specific flavor of comedy. And like I'm sure there's some people who would probably dislike Ranma for these reasons. Like they might be bothered by the fact that Rumiko Takahashi just doesn't really care to develop some of these characters, or she'll
Right.
just drop something because she couldn't think of something interesting to do with it. Like no more Dr. Tofu, we just forget about him.
Because it's but is this your comedy of choice? If you if at least in like in anime, it's just like if someone asks like, hey, what's your favorite comedy anime? You'll say something like, oh, it's either Ranma and a Half or something so like as silly as Ranma and a Half.
I'm not sure, cause like again, there are a few things that are just comedy. Like
Right.
the only other anime I can think of in that style is like maybe Azumanga Daioh, which I read in like high school. But like not a lot of stuff that I read.
I because mine is the funniest thing that I can ever show anyone, even people who like love anime or like have even more of a expanding knowledge of anime, which a lot do, is what's it called? Daily Lives of High School Boys.
Ah,
That's gonna be my pick. End of time, and that's my pick because it's more skit based. There's gonna be
yes.
it's grounded in itself, but it's also like really silly, but it's kind of like never like jumps the shark.
Yeah.
It never says like, oh, these characters can now like fly to the moon and back and then make a cartoon sound effect and go splat. It's more of, okay, like yes, the characters who like if the girl, there's this main girl who keeps hitting the class president, like he's physically hurt. Like this guy's gonna feel it the next couple days because he got like choke slammed into the floor.
Yeah, I am glad you brought this up because yeah, the four coma style
Right,
is absolutely what comedy has become
right,
in like modern anime. Like just these little skits that fit in exactly four panels, like literal newspaper comic stuff. Like
right.
imagine if every
It's a
modern
lot tighter.
comedy was written like a strip of Garfield or Peanuts, you know?
Right.
It's fine, but like Ranma wasn't written like that. Very few things follow that style, and it certainly wasn't what everything followed.
Right. It was more of like what was that? What's it called? Improv. It's like watching Rumiko Takahashi just doing improv for the next 10 years,
Yeah,
and then she's not really allowed to.
they
Yeah.
were a lot more sitcom styled as opposed to like newspaper comics, and those are just two completely different camps of comedy. And
Yeah.
I absolutely like I'm not as into skit based humor in that sense. I definitely prefer something like Ranma, because in Ranma, even though the characters are very simple and one dimensional sometimes, when they're in a funny situation, we're there for the full 22 minutes. We're there for the whole ride. It is a situation comedy, a sitcom. The weird scenarios they get in is where the humor comes from. We don't just do a gag and then immediately discard it afterwards and on to the next thing. Like we get to see funny scenarios evolve and expand and blow up into complete absurdity over time. Which does bring me back to I have not explained yet why the Cradle of Hell arc is called that.
Right. You want to, yeah, you want to bring it back to that. I feel like that's a great point to tie it all up.
So I mentioned that part of the joke is they keep cutting back to Genma and he's
Yeah.
doing his training, but the training is just playing with his panda toys. He doesn't seem to be taking it seriously. But of course, whenever Rama calls him out on it, he's like, "Oh, just you wait. I'm practicing very hard. This is going to be a real serious fight. You'll see."
Right.
And then they have their duel. So then it's revealed that Genma's been practicing a new move called the Cradle of Hell. And it turns out this move is a grapple. He grabs Ranma super tight as
Okay.
hard as he can, and he holds on to him
Right.
just like he did with his panda toys. It turns out he really was training in panda form. He was training to like how to hold on to Ranma
is
with all his strength, just practicing and strengthening his grip so that Ranma can't escape.
is this just the Death Cradle from King in like the Tekken series? Is him just grabbing Rama, rolling around, and not letting go?
Not even the rolling around part. He just holds on to him. And like I said that even the original had these implications to show just how much Genma loves his son. Because when you look at it, it certainly seems like Genma's ultimate technique for defeating his son is just a very intense hug. Like, come here, boy, just wrap his arms and legs and holds on to him, and he's never gonna let go. You will never escape me, son. I'm always here, like the perfect grapple. And just like he's not even doing a suplex or anything with it. He's just holding on to Ranma, and just the psychological implications of this being his ultimate technique are incredible. Because remember, this entire conflict began with Genma realizing that like Ranma's getting better than him. His son is growing up and surpassing him, and he might someday no longer need him. So Genma needs to find a way to just hold on and never let go. That's the ultimate technique for Cradle from Hell.
Yeah. Phew, I mean, if nothing else, you can say Genma does love Rama.
the 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 big final joke is that Ranma's like trapped in a corner. He's like, I can't do anything. If I move, he's gonna grab me, and I'll be defenseless. So they just sort of stand there, and they're doing this stare down,
Right.
and it just lingers for a while, and then eventually time passes. At first, we get like Nabiki yawning, and then the rest of the family slowly get up and leave and just give up as Ranma and Genma are doing this like samurai stare down. Who will go first?
Right.
Until eventually Ranma then realizes Genma fell asleep while standing up, and because he's just been homeless and living in a tent for a week. He's just completely malnourished, so Ranma just like shoves him. He's like, "Damn it! This has been a huge waste of time. But whatever. We'll just call it a draw." And then the goofy ending to the storyline happens, where nothing changes. We're back to the status quo, and all of this has been complete nonsense, but at least Genma got to hug his son.
And can we say that even though this is a one-off episode, this is like everything is going to go back to the status quo. The next chapter, this does like give us concrete that even though the hell that Gamma put Rama through with his backdoor dealing, his like weird like careless like we're gonna do this training event and then it has like terrible consequences and whatnot, that he is trying to provide Rama with a happy life, a stable life, a nourishing life, if nothing else. And it's just him constantly messing up and like dropping the ball and suffering, not just himself, but like with Rama. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, isn't that like the bare minimum of what you can ask for a parent? Is they love you and they do care?
yeah. So
Yeah,
truly, like his Father of the Year mug is truly deserved. He may have stolen it from Son, but it's his now.
because we never have a panda bear match with Son and Akane. It's Rama and Genma.
Yeah, so Son
Yeah.
clearly loves his daughters, but
Of
like
course, of course.
he's not trading Akane. He doesn't get up every morning to spar with her. Every time we see her practicing, she's by herself. And meanwhile, Genma's the one spending every moment he can with his son and teaching him everything possible.
It I don't want to really say it, but it's kind of like the active father who doesn't have anything to like really physically good to provide for their child versus the passive father who has more or less like everything you need, but it's just and not really like being active in the child's life. And I can't really say like I speak ill of Son because Akane is not his only child. There's Nibiki, and I forgot the oldest one,
Kasumi.
Kasumi. They're taking an importance in his life. It's just that Akane is the youngest one, correct?
Yes.
Yes. You could say that someone that after whatever in his life that maybe he is a little negligent in Akane because he's just like taking care versus Rama is Genma's only son and very active, because they have to be with each other, and that's kind of like his main goal, but passing the torch and whatnot just by training.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
don't think Son would have been able to juggle the traveler's lifestyle
yeah,
with three kids and a wife.
right. And this is, and it's would you say that Son maybe got tired over time of the dojo, even so, and he just wants it kind of gone?
Who knows?
And Akane just picked it up. Yeah, I can't really say because they never mentioned it, but Akane picked it up, and then now someone's like, I guess I don't really want you to maybe go through the same things I did. I'd rather spare you the pain and suffering, under what I went through, and I'd rather just have this passed on to my friend's child or whatever.
Yeah, his children are provided
Yeah,
for, and he's giving them the freedom to
Right,
choose what they want. But like the most he ever gets involved is like the running gag of like whenever Ranma goes too far and Son goes full demon form to like get super mad at Ranma on Akane's behalf
right.
and just being a typical overprotective sitcom dad.
That and him losing his house in the Gambling King arc. Yeah, yeah,
Well, he tried to win it back at least.
yeah. And he lost miserably, just like everyone else.
Well, like, yeah, yeah, it's definitely the two different styles of parenting. Where, like, again, Genma provides the necessary spirit of a martial artist, while Son provides
Material,
the
yeah.
materials. They need a roof over their head. They need to survive.
You need a
And
house. You
neither of
need
these parents
food.
could have done this
Yeah,
alone, but maybe together
they
they can
can
form one whole and create a family
maybe
unit.
it's loosely very chaotic, but it is better than what they had before because we wouldn't have any of the characters since if they didn't meet each other and like grow together.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah,
they're very interested and gung ho about becoming a family together. They belong together. The true perfect pair, these two dads, that they make great roommates.
yeah,
But yeah, I suppose we kind of dipped a bit into all the parents, really. I think the only one we didn't really cover is the school principal, who's the father of the Kuno family.
right.
And he like almost never interacts with his children at all. So, definitely not winning either of these two dads. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, Genma may be the source of many of the problems in Ranma's life, and he's also not the solution to a lot of those problems. But at least he loves his son. We can't deny that.
I guess the hot spring that we were always trying to find is the family found along the way.
Yes, it's a good thing
Yes.
that we all came here to the spring of drowned family. It's a little gruesome to think of like an entire family drowning together
Yeah,
in the spring, but don't think about that part. It's bringing us closer. That's what matters.
but it was more implied that maybe because all the wells got mixed together in the end that we don't need the drowned family so we can spare the tragedy and just reap the benefits.
Yeah, and it all paid off in the end.
I don't know going with this. Yeah, it all got the hot spring was within us all along. So yeah, I feel like that's a good place to leave off. If anything, I
Yeah,
feel like we exhausted or at least I did. I have a limited knowledge or any memory of Genma to begin with.
yeah, no, this was a real good talk. I
Yeah.
think we did a good job. I had fun. Is there anything you'd like to promote or, just say before we wrap things up?
I have this really stupid theory. Believe in gravity because once you achieve, will have influence upon the world.
Ah,
And if it's really weird, and it is really weird, and it's really hard to grasp, is just get really good at one thing. Get like really good at one thing, and eventually, you getting good or you messing up enough times is gonna find you're gonna find enough people to help you along the way and you're going to get better and through that you're going to achieve gravity and through gravity you're going to achieve influence and you're going to get exactly what you want in the end. I'm not going to
I can't argue with that.
I
That's a good theory to promote.
can't explain where else because it sounds like I'm crazy and I am, but you're gonna believe in his gravity and you're gonna have to believe that you're going to meet the right person because eventually you will, or thing, or object, or desire, something. Just you think of just getting good. That's kind of like the abject hard truth.
Yeah, I don't think the Ranma series disagrees with that philosophy. I think that
No,
is a fair thing to promote.
because I'm only here because of gravity, because I have a passing interest in listening Wooly and John talk about anime and whatnot. And you're only here, I imagine, the same reason. And now we're making a podcast about Rama, even though I really don't have, I have a passing interest in the series. And I kind of more or less forgot about it since high school. But we're here because of gravity.
Yeah, just the little things
Yeah.
that you maybe forgot about along the way. Like they were still there. And you never know, maybe someday you'll be the one having flashbacks to you and your dad in a tent and you're starving and cold in the snow. But that you had each other and that's all you really needed.
And that's all you really need. That's all you were looking for in the end.
And also a bowl of rice.
And maybe a dojo to inherit. I don't know. But the message is really vague.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Throw in some pickles and we're good.